always worth it to pay someone to do your taxes than it is to not. I mean, it's like having a doctor or going to the pharmacy and ask the pharmacist, you tell him your symptoms, and he, based on what you tell him, he tells you, oh, go to aisle number 6 and pick that up. He may or may not be wrong based on what you've said, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to the doctor, he'll say, no, you have pneumonia. That might not be,
Right.
So that's why I think that way.
Then I guess the best way to ultimately answer that is to kind of take your own temperature and determine if, do I just need a couple of aspirin to get rid of this headache, or is there something more severe that requires me to go see someone for
exactly.
help?
Yeah.
Well, and that what we're talking about reminded me of a question that I wanted to ask you too, because there's you can hire like as someone that is self-employed, I can hire an accounting firm, or I can hire a company to do my bookkeeping, or I can find someone that kind of knows what they're doing, or more than kind of knows what they're doing, and hire them on as an employee. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I have been at that crossroads.
There's pros and cons to both. On one hand, the pros would be that you would allow yourself additional time and flexibility to work on whatever your end product is, instead of you doing it yourself, or maybe hiring someone on full time to do it. Additionally, if you outsource your accounting, the invoice that you receive is only going to be for the hours that the accounting firm actually worked on your stuff. We all know that when we hire employees, they're working half the time, but always on the clock. You see, there's those benefits. A couple of the cons are potentially having your source documents out of your hands and out of your office for a period of time, and there's a certain lag between in information for your records and what the accounting office is doing.
I'm sure, like if you're like last minute trying to get everything in, you're probably going to be able to get everything in last minute if you just have someone that's physically in your office that only works for you versus a company, I'm sure.
Right. Additionally, there's also some cash flow benefits. Most of us will take Visa cards. I do. So, instead of looking to have actual cash for an employee, and along with cash, the payroll taxes that you have to match, the vacation pay, the sick leave, all those different types of benefits that employees are going to require, you're no longer responsible for if you wind up outsourcing your accounting responsibilities to another firm.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a small business.
Especially when you're a small business.
Like if you're some mega giant corporation, then maybe it might make sense to have an in-house accounting.
Mega Giant has hundreds of accountants running around.
Did I just say
Giant.
that?
Mega Giant.
Mega Giants.
Right. Elizabeth, what were you going to say over there? It sounds like what?
It sounds like a Transformer name.
Mega Giant? It is. Mega Giant.
Mega Giant.
Yes.
I just want to say that I've been really quiet over here, clearly. And do you ever, not that you feel like you're in trouble or you're in math class and you don't know what they're talking about, and you're just clueless, so you just shut down. You don't want to say anything because you don't know how to answer the question. You hope nobody calls on you.
Right.
That's what I feel like right now, because I totally use TurboTax.
Yeah.
And I've used it for the past 3 years.
But you use it and you know how to use it.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that wrong that I do?
No.
I was like, that's what I've been using.
No, that's exactly what he's saying, is that if your taxes aren't complicated, you can use something like TurboTaxes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then you know how opinionated I am.
I do.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with TurboTax.
No, there isn't.
You can certainly buy TurboTax, and
didn't they have some stuff happen though?
I don't
some
know.
issues. Maybe not. Okay, sorry to cut you off.
Well, no, it's okay. No, I was just going to say that TurboTax and other softwares are fine to use if you are, again, comfortable enough and familiar enough with what's going on to be able to do it correctly.
Right.
I'd hate for someone to do something completely wrong and think that it's right because they use TurboTax, and then if the IRS happens to contact them and they go, well,
TurboTax
this
told
is
me
all
to do
wrong.
it.
It's just super easy, and I just click, and maybe I missed a couple things.
Well, and there's things too. I think it also depends on, how much money you're dealing with or how much cash flow you're dealing with, because I know, like, there have been things that I found out later, like way down the road, that that I could have included on my taxes and maybe gotten a little bit more money back, or had to pay a little bit less at the end of, or in tax season, like relocating for work and things like that. Like, and there's all these things that, like, again, how am I to possibly know all of this, not being a CPA or not being an accountant?
What does CPA stand for?
That's a good question.
Because I don't know. I hear, like, if you need an accountant, just calls for a CPA. Are they the same thing? The whole time I'm like, certified personal accountant. Like, I'm just trying to find what the acronym means.
Well, you had everything right except for the P part, which is public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Certified public accountant.
Exactly.
Accountant, yeah.
Yes.
So that's another word for just accountant, but they're certified.
Exactly.
So there is a difference.
Yes, there is.
They're certified to account for your money publicly. Just kidding.
Oh, God.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Because you said it.
So certified is what you were talking about earlier with people that have taken the class. They're the more informed of the accountant breed.
There you go.
Well, it's actually kind of funny. I've met some CPAs that I really didn't think were all that informed.
Suppas.
They just do really well on taking standardized exams.
Wow, got it.
So just like doctors and lawyers and anyone else, you've got good and you've got bad and everything.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because
It's
there's
just
some
like
shady
doctors,
doctors out there. There's some shady doctors out there.
Let's not go down that road.
Okay.
We're talking
There's
for the
shady
accountant.
anything in any categories. There's
Right.
shady servers.
Right, any field.
Yeah, it's very true. But yeah, again, like there's I think it just depends on how, like, what's more important to you. Like, you're talking about TurboTax, and I used to do TurboTax too because it was quick. I could just do it myself and I didn't have to talk to anybody about it. Done. But then I remember a couple of years after I did a relocation for work purposes, I realized that that's something that I could have included in my taxes on TurboTax, but I just didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think it comes into play. Like, how much is going on in your life to where it's like, I should just talk to a professional about this and see what they have to say about it.
Right. Yeah. So if you're, like if you have like a standard W-2 and you don't have dependents and you don't have childcare and you don't have all these extra things going on and you haven't moved anywhere for job relocation, you
still live with mom.
Still live with mom. You know, you have just a standard paycheck. That's, TurboTax. You're probably not gonna get in trouble, but maybe one step above that, you may want to,
it certainly doesn't hurt to talk to someone. There's another thing that I tell a lot of people to do is get what's called a Publication 17, which is an IRS book. You can actually download it on their website. And it'll tell you in the back of the book or on the website at the very bottom of the screen, it'll break down generally what your tax obligation is.
Right.
Where it says, hey, if you're either A, married, or B, single, and you earn between X and Y, then your tax obligation for the year is going to be Z.
Okay.
And that always leaves you with a pretty good barometer about how far off I am, and also how truthful I'm being. If you made $50,000 and they say, well, your tax liability is $15,000,
you're like,
and and you're talking about getting $13,000 back,
right?
And you have no kids and you have no deductions, and something else is wrong, then chances are you might wind up raising a couple of red flags at the IRS.
Okay, yeah. And what's the book called again?
It's called a Publication 17.
Publication 17.
Yeah, and you can download it.
You can download it. It's an online.
Yeah, it's at IRS's website, irs.gov.
Okay.
And in the little search box at the top, you just type in Publication 17.
Now I have a question. Well, not question, but an observation. Like, sometimes people who necessarily need an accountant or a bookkeeper, and they think that it's this exorbitant cost involved in acquiring those services.
Right.
And could you speak to that? Because you hit on it a little bit earlier when you were saying you're not hiring me full-time 40 hours a week. You're hiring me for the specific time that I'm working on your books.
Right.
So, which is a lot less expensive than having someone sitting in your office who takes 6 breaks and 4 coffee breaks and 5 cigarette breaks and on the internet and talking to their friends and Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're absolutely right. You can certainly find an accounting a professional, which I guess just kind of is an overall explanation for whatever level of bookkeeper to CPA to
that you need.
Mega giant accounting firm, perhaps. That can
TurboTax sounds like one too.
It does.
TurboTax and Mega Giant. Okay.
So, different companies are going to charge different amounts. I work out of my home. I don't have any employees. Therefore, I don't charge the same amount of money that one of these mega giant, accounting firms would wind up charging.
Right, because you don't have the overhead.
I don't have the overhead. I don't have the square footage. I don't have people that I have to pay and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I concentrate my business on small businesses.
Okay, so that's your
Also,
focus.
a big reason why is because it's just me.
Right.
I can't afford to deal with I don't have the time to deal with, a company making, $15 or $20 million a year in revenues and expenses and depreciations and all the things that are wind up going on. I kind of concentrate on the mom and pops who probably think that they can't afford an accounting firm or someone who has a sufficient skill set to help them with what they need.
Right.
And I even have a flat rate option for many of my really, really small organizations that say, for a flat $100 a month, I can look at your stuff and give you your reports and give you an idea monthly so that you know exactly what you made, what you didn't make, why you didn't make what you thought you made.
Oh, wow.
And how much your tax obligation is for what your responsibilities are to the IRS.
And see, that's what I was talking about. See, that's the level, that's the depth and level I was trying to get to and didn't know how to get there in this conversation because there are mom and pop shops, that do need that kind of hand holding,
Right.
which I think everybody needs,
Right.
So that they can see their way clearly to becoming profitable.
Right.
Because, like my mother used to say, you could have a pocket full of money and all of it belongs to somebody else. You just feel good holding it. when you start paying your bills,
Aw, that's a
you
sad
wind
visual.
up, right? But it's true. You get through paying everybody, you got $5 left and you're like, wait a minute, I started with this pile and I only have this.
Right.
But,
And it's actually only 3 because now you got to pay tax on the 5.
on the
in
5
hand.
that you have. That's right. So it's 3. There went my Happy Meal. You know?
That's a really great point that you're making. And I talk to people all the time when I present my business to them, and they say, "Well, I don't need an accountant." You don't? Okay, then I can ask you a couple of really simple questions. Then, how much money did you make last month? And they don't know.
Right.
And
that's
I say,
a pretty simple question.
Yeah, really.
But you don't know.
But you don't know. I said, okay, well then,
Right.
how much money did your business make yesterday? Oh, we brought in $1,000. We brought in $2,000. Okay, so then how much money of that is yours? And see, what they do is they take that $1,000 out of the cash register, they put it in their pocket, they give their son and their daughter some of it because they've got to buy school or lunch money. They give their wife some money so they can go get their hair done and get their nails done.
Right.
They take some money and do some things to, I don't know, put wheels on their car or something like that.
Right.
And at the end of the year, you owe taxes.
Right here, the IRS comes knocking.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And you say, well, we didn't make any money because I didn't have any money to pay the IRS. Where do you come from saying that? Well, you see, you didn't take your money home. You took your business's money home.
That's
and
right.
that $1,000 is not yours.
Right.
That's the utilities. That's the rent. That's the insurance. That's the, I don't know, employees' portions of it. That's your inventory. That's where that money is. You took it to the club last night.
Right.
And that was your...
And bought a bottle and went VIP.
Yeah, you're kicking it in the champagne room
Right.
with, money that really doesn't belong to you.
Right.
Up in the club.
Up in the club.
Up in the...
That's true.
And see, the thing is that now when the organization needs those funds
Yeah.
either to re-up their inventory or pay their licensing fees and things like that, you've got to be able to go back to where that money came from, which is essentially your back pocket.
Right.
And that's where small mom and pop companies fail.
Right.
That's where they blow it, because you took home what you thought was yours instead of it leaving it in the business and allowing the business to hold the money. And then when it's time to, like I said, buy more inventory, shoes, or whatever it is that your company does, that money is there.
Right.
Because you see, your business doesn't get hungry, it doesn't get sleepy, and it doesn't get sick. It just wants the money in its own bank account. Just let it sit there, But when people decide that they want to go out, or when people decide that they want to go enjoy themselves or spend some of this money, the company says, fine, here it is, take it all. You see, the company's not going to step back and say, hey, this might be a bad idea.
Right.
You might want to leave that money alone because, again, IRS is going to come knocking in 3 or 4 months.
Right.
Or that truck is going to break down tomorrow.
Right.
The company's not going to stop you from doing anything you want to do.
Right.
Like that plane story I was telling you about.
Exactly.
If you want to fly it right into the side of the mountain, be my guest.